Once, there was a man who was so poor that he had to live in a one-room hut with his wife, his mother-in-law, and his 6 children. The hut was so small and so cramped and so uncomfortable that the man and his wife argued day and night, and the mother-in-law screamed, and the children cried and kicked and picked and poked at each other all the time. It was bad all year round, but it was worse in the long winters when the weather was cold, the days were short, and the nights were long. It grew noisier and noisier and noisier until the poor man could take it not one more moment. He ran to the rabbi's house to tell him his troubles. "Rabbi, honored Rabbi, you must help me." "Yes, my son? What is the matter?" "Oh, Rabbi, my life is unbearable." "Well, tell me about it, my son." "Oh, Rabbi, I am so poor that I must live in a one-room hut with my wife, my children, and my mother-in-law. It is so cramped and so uncomfortable and so noisy that I think I am about to lose my mind. I will do anything. Help me, honored Rabbi. What should I do?" The rabbi sat down, stroked his beard, and thought. At last, he said, "Tell me, my poor man, is it possible you have a couple of chickens, maybe some animals?" "Why, yes, honored Rabbi. I have 2 chickens and a rooster." "Good. I want you to go home, take the chickens, take the rooster, and bring them into the house with you." "Ah, no, Rabbi, what are you saying?" "Do as I say." And so the poor man walked home scratching his head, but did as the rabbi told him. He took the chickens, he took the roosters, and brought them into the house with him. Well, if you think things were noisy before, what were they like now? Not only was there screaming and shouting and crying and kicking and picking and poking, now there were chickens flying all over the place, a rooster perched on the loft crowing day and night, and there were even feathers in the soup. It grew noisier and noisier and noisier until the poor man could take it not one more moment. He ran to the rabbi to tell him his troubles. Honored Rabbi, you must help me. My life is worse than ever." "Yes? What is it, my son?" "Ah, Rabbi, things were bad before, but they are worse now. Not only is there screaming and shouting and crying and kicking and picking and poking, now there are chickens flying and roosters crowing and feathers in the soup. Rabbi, what am I going to do?" And the rabbi sat down, stroked his beard. At last he said, "Tell me, my good man, is it possible that maybe you have a cow? Young or old, it doesn't matter." "Why, yes," said the man doubtfully. "I do have 1 cow." "Good. I want you to go home, untie the cow, and bring her into the house with you." "What? No, Rabbi, you cannot mean it." "Do as I say. Do it at once." And so the poor man walked home with a heavy heart and did as the rabbi said. He untied the cow, opened the door, and brought her into the house with him. Well, if you think things were noisy before, can you imagine what they were like now? Not only was there screaming and shouting and crying and kicking and picking and poking and clucking and crowing, now there was mooing and a cow swishing its tail and knocking everything over and trampling over everything in the house. It grew noisier and noisier and noisier until the poor man could take it not one more moment. He rushed back to the rabbi's house and said, "Rabbi, honored Rabbi, you must help me. My life is worse than ever." Yes, my son? What is the trouble? Oh, Rabbi, my life is a nightmare. Not only is there screaming and shouting and crying and kicking and clucking and crowing, now there is mooing and trampling, and everything in my house is getting destroyed. Tell me, Rabbi, what should I do? And the rabbi sat down, stroked his beard, and at last he said, tell me, my poor man, is it possible you have maybe a goat? Why, yes, honored Rabbi, the man said fearfully. I do have one goat. She's old and not worth very much. It's not important. I want you to go home, untie the goat, and bring her into the house with you. What? No, Rabbi, you cannot be saying this. Do as I say. Do it now. And so the poor man trudged home with a bowed head and thinking, is the rabbi crazy? But he did as the rabbi said. He untied the goat, led it to the door, passed his wife, and led the goat into the house with him. Oh, imagine what his life was like now. Not only was there screaming and shouting and crying and kicking and picking and poking and crying and clucking and mooing, now there was a goat running wild, baaing and butting everyone with its horns. It grew noisier and noisier and noisier until the poor man could take it not one more moment. He ran to the rabbi, so said, Rabbi, Rabbi, you must help me, the end of the world has come. Yes, my son? What is the trouble? The trouble? Rabbi, my life is worse than I could have possibly imagined. Not only is there screaming and shouting and crying and clucking and picking and poking and mooing, now there's a goat running everywhere, butting everyone with its horns and making more noise than ever. Rabbi, what should I do? And the rabbi sat down, stroked his beard for a very long time, and at last he looked at the poor man and said, very well. I want you to go home, open the door, let out the chickens, let out the rooster, let out the cow, let out the goat, and shut the door again. Gladly, gladly, Rabbi. And the man ran home, opened the door, let out the chickens, let out the rooster, let out the goat, let out the cow, walked back inside, shut the door, and suddenly everything was very quiet. Quiet. He had never known such blessed silence before. And now there was so much room. And that night, the poor man lay down and had a quiet night's sleep for the first time in many weeks. The next morning, he got up and rushed as quickly as he could back to the rabbi's house, said, Rabbi, Rabbi, it's a miracle, a miracle. A miracle? Tell me about it, my son. Oh, Rabbi, yesterday my house was so cramped and uncomfortable and noisy, and today it is as quiet and spacious as a mansion. Rabbi, it is indeed a miracle. How could it happen? And the rabbi sat down, stroked his beard, and smiled. And that is the story of the noisy house.